It's been amazing 2 days. 2 days of food for thought, thought-provoking conversation around transformation and inclusiveness in our economy. I recall yesterday when we kicked off in the morning that we kicked off with the pathway analysis from the Vice Chair, Ms. Amina Meina. We are ending now with how, after we've done the pathway and gone through all the sectors, how do we come together as a winning team? Winning together, that's the focus of the final plenary. I'd like to welcome here our moderator for the final or the closing plenary. Let me welcome Dr. Amina Salihu, Deputy Director of MacArthur Foundation, Africa Office. These are members of the panel. The man I'm going to call first doesn't know that for years I've been his fan. I've read a lot about you, but thank you for choosing to come home to serve. Let me welcome here the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Mohammed Ali Pate, CON. We're also expecting the Coordinating Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Olawale Edun, anytime he steps in. Let me also welcome here the Chairman of NESG, Mr. Olaniyi Yusuf. The founder Beyond Limits and immediate past director, Google West Africa, Dr. Juliet Ehimuan, is also here with us. I welcome you. And Ms. Hassana Bello Aliyu, Vice President Operations, Conexa and NESG Bridge Fellow. Well, this is the award-winning panel that will lead us to the path of winning together. Let me hand over to the moderator. But do we have a video? No video. Okay.
Should we wait or should we carry on, my brother Young? Excellent. Dear Nigerians and friends of Nigeria, welcome to this last bus stop panel, as far as the panels of this 29 NES is concerned. And it's an honor to be here moderating this panel, and like has been said, this is indeed a stellar panel. Because it's a policy moment for Nigeria to be having this conversation. And the last 2 days have been most inspiring. They have been very rich. They have been very loaded with aspirations, as well as expectations. And that's to be expected, because this 29th NES is happening at the cusp of a new administration at the federal and at the state level. And we have freshly minted Federal Executive Council. We have governors that have been elected. We have listened to Nigerians, share their thought. And this panel of ours is talking about winning together. And I think after that rendition by my brother, Dike Chukwumerije, I sit here wearing my green with the utmost pride I never thought I had this morning. So, by way of a reminder, some of the important themes that have emerged from this 29th NES have got to do with the importance of policy that speak to the aspirations of people, the importance of data that actually tells the reality of our lives, the need for us to think about talent and how we harness talent, the role of innovation, the importance of technology, and the importance of thinking vertically, horizontally, and I would say even diagonally when we think about development from the federal to the state and then below the state level. And here we are having this conversation after we had the launch of the Shoneko Center yesterday, and we're closing out. I'm sorry to say that I've been told that because the time is so short, I think that's one of the reasons, we're not going to be entertaining questions, from the audience, but we know that you listen keenly because this is another policy moment. And so I would like to begin our panel really by asking everyone in different ways, because some of my panelists have been in the room all from the start, some have been part of even the organization of this particular NES. But what I want us to focus on at this moment of winning is really to tell us some of those most important priorities that each one of them in their particular location, and I have a tech guru, I have a bridge fellow, I have the chair of the NESG, as you know, and of course, the minister, a coordinating minister for health and social welfare. And so I'd like to ask them, Nigerians have expectations, they have listened to you. We're at the cusp of a very important moment. I would like to begin with you, Honorable Minister. What are some of those priorities you think are important at this point in time about coalescing all of our energies and ensuring that we win together? Health, social welfare, but even beyond that. 5 minutes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I think when you look at this country and you look at where it's going and with the demography, it would be a mistake for anyone to bet against the Nigeria that we see coming forward, a transformed and prosperous country, given the asset that it has in its people. When I travel to Kano or Maiduguri and you see the population that we have, we know that the pool of human capital and the potential within that human capital is yet to be really invested enough, and that if we do that, we can actually transform this economy and grow this country in a way that will be an example, not only on the continent, but also the rest of the world. So the basics, from adolescent health, basic healthcare, early childhood education, essentially those investments that are needed to build human capital are going to be core to achieving this grand vision that we have of a prosperous country. To do that, it takes all of us building a consensus that we value this human capital and that we'll prioritize the investments in the human capital for everyone in a way that it's inclusive, that we cannot succeed as a country on a divergent path where the haves, the elite have it, and everybody else does not have it. That is a world that will not lead to sustainable transformation, even if a few of us do well. To have that inclusive mindset and investing in basics for everyone, whether it's basic education, basic healthcare, and social protection systems that allows everyone to have a chance at reaching their full potential. I think that is key. It will take the federal government, but also our subnational leaders, the state governments, building that idea and prioritizing that in the resources they invest and the quality of what they buy with the resources. It takes the public sector as well as the private sector. While the public sector has a role, but importantly, the private sector also needs the markets. It needs productive labor force. It needs the talent to drive the innovations, to create the value that is necessary. So there's a vested interest in there as well for the public and the private sector to come together for this winning to occur. Civil society, an important actor in keeping all of us accountable and being the interlocutors with the citizens. All in all, I think if we build that consensus as a Nigerian elite that this country needs to grow and that we prioritize the people and we invest in the things that matter, not only for a few of us, but for everyone. And these are basic things. Basic primary health care, basic education, secondary education for everyone, not our children. In this room, I will doubt if there are more than 10% that actually have their children attending public schools or attending public primary health care systems. Why? We've almost succeeded as a Nigerian elite in terms of doing what we need to do for ourselves, but we have millions of our citizens out of school. Learning poverty, almost 70%. That is not a recipe, but we can change that. It's a matter of building that consensus now to invest in what matters, to bring everyone together and across sectors, across levels of government.
Many thanks indeed, Honourable Minister. And you can hear from the applause that some of what you said really did resonate. And I want to domicile a question with you as I go on to my sister, Dr. Juliet. Because you talked about the need to close the gap between the private and the public sector. And we know that depending on whose data that you're looking at, Nigeria is 2% of the world, it has 10% of its maternal deaths. And we've talked about technology a few times as a possibility of leveling the playing field. And I wonder whether, as you're thinking about this consensus building and working with the elite, you're thinking about collaboration across the different sectors, not just of government, but also private sector and civil society that you might have identified that you think will be very necessary to ensure that opportunities reach all those who should have it, regardless of where they are in Nigeria. But I'm going to domicile that question with you, and I'll go to my sister, Dr. Juliet Ehimuan, because you're a tech guru. And we're learning that there are 3 game changers, and the last panel reinforced that. The past 2 days have also reinforced that. It's women, it's young people, and it's technology. So technology can be that game changer because sometimes when opportunities don't get to where they should get to, it can close that gap. But what are some of the priorities that you're seeing now, not just from your work, but also what you have heard over the past 2 days that you think if we're really serious about winning together, people, we got to sort those out?
Thank you very much. So I think just listening to the conversations in the last 2 days, my experience of this summit has been a summit of hope. Hope in the future that we can build together as a nation. I like what was said in the last few panels about a sense of urgency. The fact that when we look around, we really don't have a choice. Things have to change. We can't continue the way we've been doing because in some ways we're failing our young people. In many ways, the reality is a far cry from where we know we can be. And for us to achieve this, there have been some great ideas shared in the last couple of days, and we need to move to the point of execution. Starting with a clear vision, as Mr. Phillips mentioned in the last session, a clear vision about the Nigeria that we want, and then a plan behind that, but rigorous execution. And that execution would require collective input from everyone that has been in this room in the last couple of days. And my hope also comes from the fact that, if I look at my sector, the technology space, the technology and in particular the digital economy just really makes a lot of things possible. We're talking about inclusivity, inclusive growth. The reality that we have right now, there was a research conducted recently by the National Bureau of Statistics in partnership with the UNDP and the UNICEF and a few other organizations, where 56,000 households in Nigeria were surveyed to look at multidimensional poverty, which measures 3 things, and that's looking at poverty from a holistic perspective. The first thing is monetary value, the second is education, and the third is access to basic infrastructural services. And the research showed that 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. Now, that's a reality that we cannot be comfortable with or allow to continue. And so when we think about the opportunities that technology and the digital economy offers to be able to move the needle and move from this space, I would zero in on 3 things. The first is, job creation, the fact that we do need to create jobs at scale, and it's great to see that top of the agenda for the present government. One area to double click on is the area of business process outsourcing, which has been mentioned in the course of the 2 days. The fact that when we look at what's happening globally, we'll see that from a manufacturing perspective, a lot of global companies are starting to diversify away from China and reduce the dependence of their supply chains on China and looking at other destinations. At the moment, India is very front and center. Beyond manufacturing, even services, call center services, accounting services, a lot of other services as well. We know the business process outsourcing industry has existed for a long time. A recent Bloomberg report says that the value of that industry is over $200 billion. but we haven't really been playing in that space, and it feels like we're leaving money on the table. And it's been mentioned in the last 2 days. I want to double click on it. The fact that when companies consider destinations for outsourcing, there are a few things they think about. They think about an enabling business environment where they can, work sustainably and, profitably. They think about available skilled labor and low-cost labor. Now, we're a big take on the last two. We have some work to do on the first point. But that's where it's so important that we have a very deliberate, concerted effort. We can't wait until we have fixed infrastructure nationwide. We can't wait until we've trained so many people. We have to walk and chew gum in terms of looking forward and executing on our aspirations. Some of the things we need to think about, just really being deliberate in going after some of these tech jobs. So approaching maybe 1 or 2 tech giants, right? And having the negotiation, even creating a bubble for them to operate in. We've heard suggestions about a national park. We've heard smart cities talked about. Just creating a bubble where there's world-class infrastructure, there's talent for them to operate in, because we need quick wins. And once you get 1 or 2, other organizations will follow. So it's that sort of deliberate action and rigorous action that we really need to move forward.
Many thanks indeed, my sister. I'm not sure if my old principal will agree with you about walking and chewing gum. She just never tolerated chewing gum at all. And Bridget is here. I went to Federal Government Girls College Bida. She knew you couldn't chew gum with Princey. But I absolutely understand what you're saying, that it's not an either or. We have to design and build as we go along. And so again, I'd like to ask you that partnership question, because Nigeria has such huge possibility, like you said, but we also have challenges we need to address, and we need to be able to find those entry points. So I'm wondering, what are some of those indispensable partnerships you think need to be on the table? You will do your part, you're already playing your part, but what are some of those indispensable partnerships that will help us achieve scale? The rest of the world is at the 4th industrial revolution, so we don't have to crawl to get there. We can leapfrog, like has been said. But so, what are those levers that we need to use? But I want you to just hold that thought, and I'll come back to you. I'd like to go to my sister, Ms. Hassana Aliyu, and I've always been curious about the NESG Bridge Fellowship, especially because we're talking about building bridges. You cannot win together unless you have built bridges and you have connected all the right energies. And the panel before ours had talked about the need to focus on the needs of young people, to understand their aspirations and to meet them, and then that way we can have expectations of who they are. And I want you not only to approach this closing panel from the perspective of what matters right now in terms of the priorities for young people, but also in terms of how the Bridge Fellowship is thinking, and you being a fellow yourself, in terms of what we think are the most important things to prioritize.
Okay, thank you. I think, first of all, I think the key in this particular discussion is the word togetherness. And at the moment, Nigeria's society and the country is very fragmented. And for us to win, we need to rebuild that togetherness, that idea of one Nigeria. And I think one way that we need to do that is to renegotiate the social contract. And by social contract, I mean us as citizens and the government need to come together and agree how we want our country to develop. What are our priorities? What are our values? Us as citizens, what are our obligations to the state? And the state, what is its obligation to the citizens? And at a bare minimum, as a young person and just as a Nigerian, and in future when I have children, this is what I want for my children, at a very bare minimum, we need to agree what each citizen should get. And it should be nourishment, it should be learning, it should be the ability to earn a living wage, it should be security, it should be dignity in your old age. So you cannot have worked your whole life, get old, and then you are destitute, and the state has failed you. There is no social net to account for all the effort you have put into this nation called Nigeria. And last year I was reading this book called something along the line of moving together. And in it, they made a comment saying, before nation states existed, our social contracts were with our tribes and local loyalties. And having read that, I thought to myself, has that, despite the fact that we are a nation, our nation is Nigeria, have we established a social contract with our nation? A lot of people, their social contract is still with their tribe and with their religious group. So we need to build this social contract with our nation. We are Nigerians first, before we are Hausa, before we are Yoruba, before we are Igbo. And those different things about us is what should make the whole stronger, not make it weaker. And so part of this, building this social contract, I think, is establishing a minimum value system and a minimum behavior system that is a bare minimum we will accept from ourselves. In a situation where you have an elected government official assaulting a citizen, and there is no consequence, there is no accountability. In a more developed democracy, that person would not even have to be told to resign. They will fall on their sword. But in our democracy, it's just the victim will now be, the victim when he's trying to exercise his right as a citizen of Nigeria for due process and for assistance, will go to the police, and because he's a person of no consequence, the victim now becomes the perpetrator, and the perpetrator gets, and the victim becomes the perpetrator and gets harassed, and the perpetrator, because they are someone of consequence, gets away with it, and they continue to live their lives with no consequences. So having this minimum agreed level of behavior, and having consequences, having accountability for your actions, and the citizens being able to see that if you do not meet your obligation as citizens, there is consequences, and the government, if they don't meet their obligations to the citizens, there are consequences. We can't just continue in this way where things just happen, no consequences, everything, by tomorrow we wake up and we moved on to something else. This is what is continuing to build this trust deficit that we keep on hearing about. And a second point is government, when they make promises and they communicate their plans, their words need to match their actions. And again, this is about trust. If you're building this trust, you need to demonstrate. And it's a case of what is good for the goose has to be good for the gander. When you have government saying Nigeria is in a very precarious situation, we're broke, and on the other hand, you see excessive expenditures on irrelevant things like cars, then you're like, why am I sacrificing when
Absolutely.
you are not willing to sacrifice, you know? So it's all about building that trust, building that value system, and re-establishing the social contract between citizen and state.
Absolutely. Thank you, my sister Hasina. It's a very great moment to pause. We've talked about elite consensus, then you brought in the dimension of social contract theory and renegotiating that. And I am just, again, I'm wondering about whether, as we're expecting government to do its part, no doubt, because there were many policy moments at this summit. I heard the information minister say, they would never lie to us. I hope you all heard that, and I wasn't the only one who heard that. And I was like, NESG, note this NES 29, that, you know, we're not going to have an information minister that lies to us. So I think it's in those kind of subtle nuance. You know, sometimes you don't look out for the big moments. You just look out for the small, subtle moments, because in the end, that is where the real change would lie. So holding to account, like Hasina said, is very important. And I'm going to come back to you at a point to say, as a bridge fellow, if you were going to hold this present government to account, and we have a coordinating minister here, I've been informed that another coordinating minister is on his way. I would want you to think about 3 things that you think will matter in terms of holding government to account. But also 3 things that you think citizens themselves, remember we're winning together, yeah? Also need to focus attention on. But again, I'm going to warehouse that question with you because I have to come to our chair. Chair, congratulations on the launch of the Shoneko Center for Legislative Reforms and Economic Development. I followed keenly and I was very excited, especially with some of the panels yesterday that talked about the need for there to be synergy and collaboration across all of the different, if you will, governmental layers that we have. I was a bit concerned, though, that local government did not really feature as it should. We kind of stopped at the level of the state. And as we know, everything is local. All lives are lived locally. But that's not really my concern to you at this point. My concern is that I want to go back to DK's intervention and his use of the analogy of football. And I know that in football, you all can win together as a team when the goalpost does not shift. There are times in the history of Nigeria that the goalposts continue to shift. And what do I mean? Soldier come, soldier go, barrack nko, remain. Policy somersaults, lack of continuity. So you think you've gotten the vision and you're aligned and you're going with the vision. The next thing you know, XX agenda, XY agenda. And people are like, where are we? So, should a Shoneko Center be focused on looking at ensuring that when the regimes change, especially policies that work, do not get thrown off the cuff? What do you think would work?
The Shoneko Center, its focus is on institutional reforms through legislative actions. And those legislative actions will really be for the federation. So it's really not only at the federal, but will come to the subnational, and of course we'll also get to the local government. But you know, when DK spoke about 17th of December 1944, and how Nigerians who were in the West African force in Burma withstood hardship and Japanese onslaught for 5 days. I said to myself, that generation has done what they could, and they've passed the baton onto a different generation. Folks in the NESG community, for 30 years, have been paying to serve. For 30 years, they've been creating the platform for engagement between different actors in the economy. That, for me, talks about grit. That, for me, talks about resilience. And that's really the spirit of the average Nigerian, how we all can come together to address issues that are affecting us. And my sense is that there are times that you look for change, but times when a decade worth of change will happen in just one day. And if you as an institution is not prepared, you will miss that moment. And I think what the NESG has done consistently over the last 30 years and thereabout, and what we're not doing with the Shoneko Center, is to always be ready, to always be prepared, to always create opportunities for us to review legislations, such that when the right moment comes, we are not found wanting, right? 2-3 years ago, we did a review suggesting there are over 115 laws that are inhibiting businesses in Nigeria. 115, right? As at the last count, I think we probably touched 8 or 10. So it's a marathon. And our hope is that when we create a specific center, which is the National Center for Legislative Reforms and Economic Development, they can take on that job of working with the legislature, with the Judiciary Institute, with the governors through the NGF, and of course with the states also through the state legislature, and then see how we can fuse minds together and ensure that we keep knocking and we keep building, because this nation has got to be built, and no one will do it but us.
Absolutely. Many thanks indeed. And I'm going to stay with you this time, my brother, because no one can do it but us. I would agree with you. And I know that one thing that seems to be a response to how we bridge this gap and how we win together is something, again, that you have done in terms of having not just a NASBA, which looks at the business environment from the National Assembly perspective, but also a SABA, which looks at the State House of Assembly as well as the business, environment. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there are lessons, because we have mix of people in the audience from, government, non-governmental places, whether there's some lessons as well as some opportunities that you see in this kind of, horizontal, or the horizontal and vertical kind of thing, and to ask you about the diagonal, where does civil society then come in here?
Right. So when we started this, the Economic Summit 30 years ago, it really was private and public sector. And it was really us talking to the federal. But then we realized that we've got to build systems, right? As they say, if you are interested in going fast, you walk alone. But if you want to go far, you walk together. And so it's important for us to work with the legislatures, who are the ones that really create the bills and the laws that, that all of us would then need to abide by. And so that led to the creation of NASBA. But what we found that has been quite interesting is that many people desire change, but they're looking for the trusted platform that can aggregate views together. And so as NESG serves as that trusted platform on the private public sector side, we're working with the NGF as that trusted platform that brings all the governors together. So it's make it easier. Instead of having to go knocking on 36 doors, you work with the NGF, and that gets done. And so that is going well. The other thing we've done at the NESG is also to create 3 communities of practice, right? So beyond our business groups, we have 3 communities of practice focused on gender, on youth, and on MSME. And our reason is that those 3 cut across different sectors of the economy. And like Omorigbe said in the last panel, if you solve for the Nigerian youth, you solve for all of us. This nation won't be great if women don't take the right place as men have traditionally done. And so we created that center for gender. We've created a policy innovation change, PIC agency, that focuses on what kind of behaviors do we need to exhibit for change to happen and for change to stick. So it's not just enough to come up with policies and interventions, but how do we ensure that those policies and interventions are embedded, are sustainable, and they become part of our culture. And so there's something called behavioral science that looks at the nuggets of things you need to do to make change stick. And so that is the first center we actually created at the NESG, while the Shoneko Center is the second center we've created, taking how change can be made permanent. So I'll argue that the diagonal, in terms of the civil society, in terms of gender, in terms of youth, are part of the community of practice, and of course our policy innovation center.
Many thanks indeed, my brother. I'll return to you, Hassana, to collect on the debt that you owe me. and I want you to remember, I'd ask you for 3 things that you think you'd like to see that matter at this point in time, on the government side, but also on the citizen side.
Yeah. So on the government side, number 1, I think the government needs to make sure that their words and their actions match up. And that is important in building trust. Number 2, there needs to be integrity in the system. So we cannot have a situation where the rules are applied differently. So you have someone who steals 10,000 naira and they languish in prison for decades without due process. Whereas then you have someone who is stealing our Commonwealth in the billions, and not only is that person still free, they still have their influence and their privilege. So the system has to be applied with equality and equity and integrity. And thirdly, I would say accountability and consequences. When the citizens do something wrong, there is consequences, and equally that should apply to the government. When they do, and the consequences need to be enough to be a deterrent against such behavior happening again in the future. So walking the talk, consequences, and a system with integrity. And then from the citizen side, we as well, obviously, we have our role to play. We need to be law-abiding citizens. As a Nigerian citizen, we confess it ourselves, we can be nuisances. We are nuisances to our own selves. Even just driving and you see the way people disregard traffic laws, we are a nuisance. So we need to be law-abiding. Secondly, I would say we need to exercise our civic duty diligently and importantly vote. And it's not enough to just vote. You need to vote with your conscience and vote with your intellect, and not vote because somebody came from your region. It's about voting to make a change in our country. And finally, I would say we need to be ambassadors for Nigeria. And the grievances are legitimate, the anger and the hopelessness is legitimate, but it is sad to go online and see Nigerians bashing Nigeria, because the whole world can see that we are abusing our own country. And sometimes I wonder, do people think that there's somewhere else for everybody else to go? This Japa syndrome. Some of us have to stay behind. And it's making life, even for the people who do Japa, when we have destroyed the image of our country, we are destroying ourselves, because when you now go and engage with people in different countries, they will have this image of you that you have put out there. So we need to be ambassadors of our country and promote the Nigeria that we want to see.
Many thanks indeed, my sister. Nigeria is the only country where we're going to be looked at as first-class citizens. Anywhere else we go, we're going to be at best second class, and a whole lot worse more. Thank you for your thoughts. Doc, I'm coming back to you. We talked about the game changers earlier, and technology is your thing. Your entire history talks about amazing work you have done in ensuring a level playing field. But I'd asked you to think about how we can build skill, because if we're going to win together, we cannot leave anyone behind. So how do we truly look at, so I am a granddaughter of a cattle header, and I'm wondering how, in terms of skill, how that technology can transform the lives of someone or people who are in a place where they have never even seen a technology highway. We've heard about financial inclusion, and at a point in this country when the Naira was withdrawn all of a sudden, and we were all supposed to migrate, as it were, to sort of e-based financial inclusion system, there was pandemonium because the infrastructure wasn't there, the education wasn't there, the communication wasn't also there. And we're talking about winning together. How do we scale and close that gap?
Thank you. So for us to scale, it's important that we come together and work together, and this is the public and private sector, but even among the private sector, because this is a country of 210 million people. There are a number of great initiatives happening, but they're so silo-based, and the impact is not far-reaching because each group or each institution is just really struggling to make some things happen on its own. But if we come together, then we can achieve the right level of scale that is important. And you talked about inclusivity and the example you gave about cattle rearing, etc. I mentioned that the hope lies in a number of things, but if I zoom into the tech space, I believe that a lot of our challenges would not be solved by traditional methods of the past. Technology really gives us an opportunity to move faster and more cost-effectively. If we think about the mobile phone revolution, in 1998, we had about 200,000 lines. And fast forward to today, we have over 200 million connections, right? And we're seeing great innovations on the mobile phone. With a lot of tech platforms, we can create more inclusivity because it provides a level playing field. If you think of the fact that today with your phone, you have access to the world's information. So if you are a student of Uniben, or you are in Nsukka, or even in, in ABU, you have access to the same information as someone at Harvard or Stanford or wherever, right? And that is a level playing field. And when we think about some of the challenges we have in different sectors, you mentioned financial inclusion. Fintech systems are providing some advancement in terms of financial inclusion, closing that gap. When you think about health, we know that the ratio of doctors to patients is a far cry from where it should be. But when we think about technology solutions like telemedicine, remote diagnostics, etc., we can really bridge this gap. When we think about education, we know that in a lot of our schools, we're struggling to keep the curricula up to date and, graduate students that are ready for the workplace of the future. But with a lot of e-learning tools and platforms, we can augment that learning in real time and just really give access to world-class, sophisticated, fit-for-purpose learning. So these are some examples of how, tech solutions can be deployed to really create inclusivity. Because when we think about inclusive growth, it shouldn't matter about your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, what part of the country you live, who you have access to. These are opportunities that should be available to every Nigerian citizen. And another example, when we talk about that partnership, is in the space of entrepreneurship. This is an area in the tech space where we've had a lot of national pride in the last few years. We've seen the birth of a few unicorns. A unicorn is a business that is worth over $1 billion. We've seen the birth of a few unicorns that we're excited about. But on the continent, in the last decade, we've produced about 9 unicorns in the tech space. Now, this is a continent of 1.2 billion people. In the UK, which has 67 million people, in the last decade, they have produced over 200 unicorns. So even though we're celebrating about our 9 unicorns, it's a far cry from the potential and where we should be. And for us to achieve scale, we need that collaboration. We need government stepping in. We have entrepreneurs doing amazing work and just going against the odds, right? It's great to have the Nigerian Startup Act. We need to come together to just really ensure that we remove the obstacles and we join efforts so that we can achieve that scale. Still on entrepreneurship, we've seen more investments into Nigeria and we're trying to attract more foreign direct investment. Year on year, we haven't exceeded $10 billion in any investment year, right? It's still single digits. Now, compare that with the US, for example. In 2022, investment to tech businesses, just tech in the US, was at about $125 billion in 1 year. We haven't hit $10 billion at any point in time. So these are realities, The country, we have too much talent. We have 70% young people that are vibrant, talented, creative. We shouldn't be dealing with the numbers that we have right now. We need to, as a matter of urgency, come together, look at the tools where we need to pull certain levers and pillars to be able to double down and achieve scale in some of these areas.
Many thanks indeed, my sister. And this keeps coming back. The panel, yesterday and another one today had talked about the urgency of the now. And I think that's something that the NESG has had to even tackle at a point in time in terms of one of its reports. It means we cannot wait because life is being lived, lives are being lost, opportunities are passing us by, and we say we are the giants of Africa. Honorable Minister, I know I'd left a question with you in terms of how we can maybe use technology and you collaborating with your colleagues to say, reach that poor person in the Niger Delta on the water somewhere who needs to access healthcare or who needs to access opportunities. And I want you to begin by speaking to that. But, something that my sister, Dr. Ehimuan, said makes me want to come back to you with another question later, but let me allow you offload that one first. How are you thinking? Because you're not just a minister of the Federal Republic, you are a citizen of the world, and we're happy you have come back home to serve because you know where the world is at and where we are at. So no one wins alone. We want you to talk about not just tech, because I know if you go outside Abuja now, you're going to see people who are climbing on hills just to say, good morning, my neighbor, to their neighbor who is 2 kilometers away, because connectivity has forgotten them. They're not profitable, so no one gives them a mast. But imagine what that can do for healthcare and more.
Yes, I think a lot, and it's possible to solve the issues that we face. There are 4 things that we're trying to do, and we've started on that path. The first is to improve the overall governance of health, which requires all of us working together, including the private sector, to be more accountable. And I like the points that was made by Hassana, that we focus on our citizens and responding to their needs and being held accountable for that. And I think that's an important pillar for health, but also for other sectors. Secondly, to improve the key measures that are needed to reduce the maternal mortality, child mortality, and care for the burden of disease that we face, whether they're non-communicable diseases or other diseases, in our front end or in our high-level facilities. That requires human resources that can be technologically boosted by what they can be able to do, or our facilities at a high level that can use digital transformation to leapfrog what are they able to do, whether it's radiology services, whether it's consultation, telemedicine, all of those elements, and financing of health to deliver those outcomes. The third element is unlocking the healthcare value chain. And our president has approved an initiative to unlock the healthcare value chain. In most OECD countries, health accounts for almost 9–10% of their GDP. In the US, it's second to defense. Here, it's less than 4%. So there's a value chain that we have not really tapped into that can create jobs, create economic value, and also improve in terms of the ability of our own health system to have what it needs domestically produced. 80% of our generics are imported. 99% of our medical devices are imported. Vaccines, 100%. There's a lot that we can do in that space, and that will create jobs. And we are focused on that, including the health tech, the innovators, some of whom are not mainstream experts in medicine. The young entrepreneurs that we have coming from our schools are engineers who are out of the field. They're in the margins. They can look at these problems, look at them differently, and find solutions and allow us to leapfrog. So the establishment may not be able to see those problems and solve them, but the young Nigerians who are capable can be able to do that. And I think this is the effort that we're beginning to embark upon. And then fourthly, to focus on health security for our resilience. Because we saw with COVID, we made progress, but it was undone by a disease outbreak that affected both public sector and the private sector. Underneath that, digital transformation is a cross-cutting enabler for all of what we are trying to do. And I think that's where the Ministry of Digital Economy, I think, and innovation can be a key partner in what we do in health, as it will be for what is done in education. Financing and the defragmentation of the financing landscape will allow us to reach our population with the basic things, whether they're in Akwa Ibom or in Ilela in Sokoto, with the most basic healthcare services. So we have developed a basic healthcare provision fund, which is in existence, and a sector-wide program that is currently under development. And by the first quarter of 2024, we'll launch it so that we increase the quantum of financing along with our partners to drive the changes that are needed to improve outcomes. And importantly, harnessing the talent and reorienting the culture within the sector. It's not easy, but I think all of us as leaders, whether in public sector or private sector or at different levels, can really forge this consensus and work together to change the abysmal state of the health of Nigerians. It is all of us working together that will make it happen, not just the Ministry of Health or only the government. And I think we can be able to do that.
Absolutely. Many thanks indeed, Minister. I'm inspired really listening to you. And so the question that I said I wanted to leave at your doorstep, because you attend the Federal Executive Council, and like I said earlier, you're a citizen of the world, and because my sister, Dr. Juliet, had referenced the fact that not just on the African continent, but especially on the African continent, Nigeria has some of the best startups, you know, the unicorns that she was talking about. And I realized that citizens are really kind of gone ahead of the government in a sense that even though we're all part of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Minister, we need a visa to go to South Africa. So how serious are we as a continent and as a country that has leadership on the African continent if we cannot cross and grow our resources and grow our economy and our citizens find opportunities in places that they're going to feel safe, even on their continent? I mean, for Europe, you need just to have a Schengen visa and you could cross from whatever country you wanted to go to, but something as basic as visa is still a challenge. And I know you're not the Minister for Foreign Affairs, so you may choose to answer or not, but because you're a citizen of the world and you sit on the Federal Executive Council, and we're talking about opportunities to grow our economy and to be that leader that we are on the African continent, it becomes a very obvious, but a very simple thing to also address.
I think the visa reciprocity that the Ministry of Interior has sort of embarked upon, I think it's a great start. to try to bring discipline in terms of how our citizens are perceived and by other countries. But let me also answer your question from the point of view of the African Union, the continental vision that the African Union has for Africa 2063, which is in the next 40 years. Where are we going to be as a continent? The elements that you've mentioned are being put together on that path to the Africa 2063, where we have a prosperous continent. And within that continent, a third of it or a quarter of it is Nigeria. And within that, African Continental Free Trade and the other institutions like African Medicines Agency and also the harmonization of our cross-border tariffs and also easing the movement of people will be key to it. But that is a dialogue that is already happening by heads of states on the continent, and I think we are part of it, and we should continue to do in that direction such that our people are able to move across borders, at least within our continent, more freely. But it starts with earning that respect as a country. When we don't deliver, when we are a quarter of maternal mortality, for instance, when we are 2.4% of the world's population, when we are being told that we have 20 million out-of-school children, it signals almost a lack of seriousness on the part of us as a people. And we earn that respect by solving these issues together, by growing our economy. So when people talk to us, they're not talking to us out of charity, but out of respect, because they see the size of our economy. If the president's vision of getting to $1 trillion economy comes to pass, folks will come here and they will come respectfully to do business with us. They will want us to go and invest in their countries. So we earn that respect by getting our acts together, not by demanding it, because it is not by force. So that respect is something that we have to earn.
Absolutely. Many thanks indeed, Honorable Minister, for your honesty. And I'd like to come to our chair because of something that you just said. And at the opening plenary, we had heard that by the year 2035, we want to be able to have a $4 trillion economy. We want to have a growth rate of 13.4, and we want to be able to lift about 10 million Nigerians out of poverty. It's a very beautiful story of how you win together. But from also what we're hearing here, it's like, I can only think of the proverb in Hausa. It's like some of the people feel that they have become anturum mota. So the car, I see my namesake, my sister Amina laughing. The vehicle has already left the station. They're not on it, and they're being asked to push it. And then they're told that is participation. So my question to the NESG is, will the NESG need to support the administration you work with a communication strategy of how to take everyone and have everyone, you know, like I think it was my Ebo Phillips that was talking about the Malaysian example earlier about what the Prime Minister said, so that we're all singing from the same hymn book. Is it about time for us to have that shared national communication strategy so we know, back again to the first question I'd asked you, that whichever government it is that is in power, we know this is who we are, you know, we're great people, we have a great nation, and this is how we pull together. Would that be something you think you could do?
So yesterday at the summit opening, when Amina presented the pathways to what we call economic transformation and inclusion, sustainable economic transformation and inclusion, and that pathway we believe can lead us to a $4 trillion economy by 2035. She gave 5 conditions, right? And the 5th, but not the least condition, was national cohesion, right? And national cohesion means we've got to get Nigerians, more Nigerians, to believe in Nigeria, right? And that will start from our value system, right? It's a common shared sense of value that defines who we are, what we believe in, and what we'd like to work together to achieve. And so change, transformation, sustainable change will come only when we're all singing from the same page. So we understand that. And I think it's something that the NESG is keen to explore with the government. What I've seen is most times you see what you want to see, right? And so you see a cup and you say, oh, this cup is half full. And the other person says, well, the cup is full. One portion water, the other portion is air, right? And so in this same country, where a lot of people see challenges, every inadequacy is an opportunity. Every opportunity is looking for builders who can turn it into solution. So Juliet talked about 9 unicorns on the continent. 5 of those formed in Nigeria, operating in Nigeria, right? So that is important for us to understand that. So in the midst of this crisis, you have huge opportunities for those who really can discern it, right? Of those 5 unicorns, 2 were associated with one person, in Aboyeji, who is less than 33 years, right? So young Nigerians are doing much more than what some of us think. They are innovative, they are seizing the moment, and that gives me hope that there's a generation that really will turn our inadequacies into wealth and into shared prosperity. And so our challenge really is to begin to see more of those, right? And to see more of those who are turning challenges into opportunities to solve for the nation, and in the process, everybody benefits.
I couldn't agree more about opportunities and everybody benefiting. And I want to ask, each of my panelists one last question as we close, because time is always of the essence, and I've never gone over time in my life, and I don't think we should start now, especially because, we are like the last Ekwe, like they say. I would really like to follow up on something that you had said about something that gives you hope, and I want to ask every one of you, first of all, it's a 2-pronged question. What do you commit to? I know you're already doing a lot, but also what gives you hope? And I know yesterday, Chair, that the chair of the Governors Forum had challenged the NESG and said, why do we always have this in Abuja? Would you be willing to take it to other states as a way of winning together? So maybe that's something you want to speak to as you talk about your commitment. I do not know. But I just want to, because there are times when it can be very overwhelming. I can understand that. And there are conditions for how we will win together. And for me, I think it is having that goalpost. When we know where it is, then we all know where we're heading towards. But I'd like to hear from each one of you, because at the end of the day, it's about the people in this room, the people online, the people who are not here. It's not about the money that we'll have. And I think I remember my Yoruba grandmother would say to me, "Noni, noni, noni, onta nila, noni." You never go to look for what you don't have. Yeah, please, I should have asked the Hausa speakers to help me translate earlier, but it's not too late. Let me ask the Yoruba speakers to help me translate. But it's really about valuing what you have and using what you have. And human beings are the most important. Chukwumereje just told us to take a leap of faith. So what is your leap of faith? What gives you hope every time you wake up? What do you commit to doing more of? And I'd just like to go in the order in which you're seated this time. My sister, Hassana.
I guess, and inspired by DK Chukwumereje, I commit to being ambassador for Nigeria and to challenge every negative perception with a positive one.
My sis, Juliet.
So I'm encouraged by the fact that our problems are not insurmountable. On the flip side, like Niyi said, on the flip side of every challenge is opportunity. And when we talk about eradicating poverty, the Honorable Minister was talking about, being taken seriously if we get our act together and things like growing the economy. The reality is these are things that are within our grasp. So, when I talked about entrepreneurship and talked about business process outsourcing, the reason is because these have a direct impact on job creation. We're looking at creating 3 million jobs. We can create even much more than that, right? If we turn the wheels and get these things in motion. Agriculture is a great contributor to GDP. With tech systems, artificial intelligence and machine learning is being used on some farms to automatically detect crop diseases and so on. So, the possibilities are enormous. So, on my part, in terms of what one is doing, so I think just really supporting and helping to develop the next generation of entrepreneurs. So I've run a fellowship for tech startups, providing support, mentoring, and even funding. And I think this is something that can really be done at scale by multiple players, so that we support our young entrepreneurs that are just really bringing a lot of solutions to the table to grow, because that way the economy grows as well.
And indeed, thank you. You're already going beyond limits.
Yes.
Chair.
Right, so what gives me hope? I think really it's really about Nigerians, right? Nigerians give me hope. I'm an incurable optimist, right? So the Honorable Minister, for instance, got a global appointment with Gavi. Said no, I'd like to come back home. That gives me hope. So thank you for serving, right? I spoke about Inyaboyeji, 32, 33 years old, is in part of 2 unicorn, on the way to creating a 3rd unicorn. That gives me hope. All of 3 working from Lagos, right? If you look at the entertainment industry, when I was in university, when you go to a disco party, it's all about American music. Today, you go to a party, it's about whiskey, it's about Tiwa Savage, it's about Davido, right? So that gives me hope, right? That Nigerians make things happen, right? Yesterday, Governor Abdullahi Sule talked about companies in Nasarawa that are mining lithium. Right, so we used to know Nigeria for crude oil, gold. Now, lithium is about electronic vehicles. And today, not only are they mining, but it's insisting that they should be processing. That gives me hope that even as we talk about energy transition and the near future, there are pockets of excellence across the nation. And those pockets of excellence, when we learn from them, then we can begin to see the connectivity. That gives me hope. So really, Nigerians give me hope.
Absolutely. Many thanks indeed for your contribution. Honorable Minister, what do you commit to and what gives you hope?
I think what gives me hope is the sense that Nigerians truly care about Nigeria. Whether it's in the diaspora, whether it's in the social media, whether it's on the streets, with all the anger, with all the frustration vented out, with all the complaints that come, it's because we care. And we care about this country. I think if Nigerians don't care about this country, we'll be quiet and I will be very depressed. But the fact that we care about the country is why people are vehemently complaining and throwing stones and kicking. Because the opposite of really not caring is to be totally indifferent. And you see that in some countries where the diaspora will not care about the country that they have left. But here, both domestically as well as internationally, all over, wherever you see Nigerians, they will be talking about what's happening at home. And in Nigeria, everybody is complaining about something not going right. It is because they care. And I think that is what we need to harness. Absolutely. That collective will as a people to make this country great and to do all the elements, government doing its part, private sector, entrepreneurs, youth, all of us. It is us that will make this country great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Many thanks indeed, Honorable Minister. Really, 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 what gives me hope is that it has to be really minute.
That I think one thing I would say is that Nigeria needs to raise the bar higher than it is at the moment, because sometimes it feels like we do the bare minimum and we start patting ourselves on the back. It's good, but it's not good enough. We need to raise the bar a lot higher.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I had to allow Hassana, because in Igbo it is said, Nneka, mother is supreme. And so when a woman says she has something extra she wants to say, she usually says things that matter. You all give me hope. The fact that you're still here at this hour applauding us and paying attention to us gives me hope. I want to give you one last assignment, because I know Nigerians are ever willing, ever warm, ever been part of the life of the party. I've seen this gentleman standing here who has been doing the sign language work, and I can't salute the NESG more than that for thinking about inclusion. And I want to ask you all to join me in affirming him the way the disability community claps. They do not clap, they do this. I hope we're taking a photo of this. It looks very powerful from here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my sister Hassana, my sister Juliet, our chair, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. My brother Young, we're all yours. We've given you 1 minute to go. Can we leave? I know.
Wow, what a session. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. We'd now like to take photographs very quickly, and I'd like to invite to join the panelists and the moderator, the chairman, NESG, okay, he's already on stage, so no, he's not joining. But the vice chairpersons, Ms. Amina Mena, Mr. Boye Olusonya, Mr. Osage Okumbo, the CEO, NESG, Mr. Laoye Jayola. Also, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, please kindly join the photograph. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Also, the Executive Secretary, NCDMB, Mr. Simbi Wabote, please join, sir. And the Director, NESG, Mr. Nana Ude, please also join for quick photographs. Also, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, kindly join the photographs. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite the Chairman, NESG, Mr. Olaniyi Yusuf. A round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And mine is not a closing remarks. I've not been given the opportunity. I was only told to do the welcome speech yesterday. But I think it's important to thank everyone who has been here since yesterday. At the 29th Nigerian Economic Summit. But more importantly, I also would like to thank a particular individual who has dedicated 9 years of post-retirement to serving the NESG. And to serving the nation. And I recall when at the board, we said we were looking for a CEO. I guess the cat is out of the bag, right? Mr. Jayola was a director of the NESG, and we said we'd like to get a new CEO, but it will take us a few weeks to find the right person so that we don't put ourselves under undue pressure. So a few directors spoke with him, and he said, okay, sure, I'll serve for 3 months pro bono. And as you will, 3 months became 6 months pro bono. And after 6 months, we said, well, why don't you just be the director, be the CEO of the NESG? It took a bit of convincing, and he agreed. And he said, okay, I'll do just 3 years. 3 years, and you guys need to find someone that can do this because I'd like to go back to my village. So his village is Okemesi in Ekiti State. And so by the 3rd year, we were enjoying him. And we said, okay, let's look at the governance of the NESG. And we agreed that a CEO must serve at least 4 years. But we said the 4 years, we just start counting now. Well, Mr. Jayola has been so gracious, so thankful, so kind to the NESG and the NESG community. When it served 7 years, we said, well, now we think we should begin to look for a new CEO. So we'll start the search. We've started the search, set up a board committee, found someone, but I then asked him that, I've just been made a new chairman. Won't you support me? You must help me do the first summit. And so he agreed that he would stay on till December. So Mr. Jayola, thank you so very much. Thank you. I suspect the who came from the Bridge Fellows. Yeah, because Mr. Jayola also came up with the idea of NESG developing the next generation of leaders by setting up and starting a fellowship, what we call the Bridge Fellow, which is really free, and that NESG has committed to doing. So thank you, Mr. Jayola, for your service. We wish you all the very best. So this is not a send forth, but I just thought it was important to let the NESG community be aware that this will be Mr. Jayola's last summit as the CEO. You must come back for the 30th anniversary, right? And so say a bit more about the CEO's, Mr. Jayola's journey. There's a video that the Secretariat has, he's shocked. Right, so let's watch.
In Nigeria's economic story, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group holds a vital chapter. Standing on the shoulders of the founding fathers and the giants who paved the way, we are the NESG, and all we do is serve in the national interest. Over the last 2 decades of the NESG, a new crop of engaged participants paying to serve ushered in a new era. In 2014, following the exit of former NESG Director General Frank Nweke Jr., the board of the NESG was faced with the challenge of finding a new successor to lead the group. After a prolonged search, one board member, Joseph Olawale Jayola, stepped up to take the role of Interim Director General.
I remember I was on that committee to search for a CEO at that time to take over from the then Director General, who had left and we hadn't found a replacement. He actually sacrificed going to go start a partnership business for taking on the leadership position as the CEO of the NESG.
We were like, where are we going to get a CEO from? And he volunteered that, okay, he will step in as interim CEO for 3 to 6 months. And 3 to 6 months, we realized that he knows what we need to do. And so we asked him to stay on.
Under Joseph Olawale Jayola's leadership, NESG became a force for evidence-based policy advocacy. At the helm of affairs, JOJ oversaw the 21st to 29th annual Nigerian Economic Summit, grew the NESG from a small team to 12 policy commissions, 3 communities of practice, 45 thematic groups, about 100 employees, and over 1,000 volunteers. JOJ's legacy at the NESG is not just about his achievements, but also the leaders he nurtured. He is leaving the organization more sustainable and influential.
One, that's extremely important for the sustainability of the NESG, was that he helped us to diversify our revenue sources.
One of the things in my own interaction with him that he stressed quite a bit is how are we looking after our staff. He really is somebody that if I was to go into a battle and I have him beside me, I'm good.
To me, Jojo had been a wonderful colleague, friend, as well as somebody that you actually can go to if you need solutions.
JOJ's legacy extends far beyond NESG's walls, shaping a brighter future for Nigeria.
Thank you, CEO.
Whatever he does next, we know from his track record that it will be in the national interest. In Nigeria's economic story,
Thanks. I know that what it's going to do next is also focus on building leaders. Right? I think it's committed to building leaders, and sometime soon, in the next few weeks in November, it will share more about that with us. Its next act, it's institutions that will build leaders. Right? So, as a token, I'm not sure how much of 9 years has been packed here as service, but Honorable Minister, sir, you can please join me. And the vice chairs, the 3 vice chairs.
Mr. Chair, can I invite other board members to join the photograph, please? Other board members, please. The permanent secretary and the CEO designate. The shoe is very large for you. "22 solid years of involvement in Nigerian Economic Summit. Amazing service. Let's appreciate him with a warm round of applause as he steps down.
So when Mr. Jayola gave notice that he does not want further extension, and I really would like to go back to his village and be with his people, the board asked that we should set up a nomination committee to conduct a thorough search for a successor. And that search considered both internal candidates and external candidates. And the nomination committee was led by Boye Olusonya, the second vice chairman of the board. And they went through a process that took up to 2 or 3 months. And at the end, they recommended to the board Dr. Tayo Aduloju. Tayo has been with the NESG for almost a decade or more. He came in first as a research fellow. You know, it's, what are you guys doing? Let me just, put my toes in the water to test if this will be possible. And I think that also happened with the assistance of Dr. Jayola, Mr. Jayola, that we need to build capacity in the NESG secretariat, and that we need to involve strong researchers, have strong economists that can be part of the secretariat. And so he started this scheme called Research Fellow, and that's how Tayo started with the NESG community. From being a research fellow, he became the COO. At the time, he was leading the Abuja office of the NESG, and so was responsible for all our interactions with the public sector. So Tayo has spent many, many, many years, and we are glad that he's accepted the challenge to take on, to lead the NESG on to the next chapter as we do our 30th anniversary. And I'm confident that with him, we have someone who not only understands policy, but has implementation experience. We have someone who not only has lived in Lagos, but has also lived in Abuja. We have someone who not only does have private sector experience, but also has public sector experience, right? We have someone who has youth on his side, right? And we have someone who also has brilliance and intelligence, energy, and capacity. I've attended a few meetings in Abuja with Tayo, and at 10 p.m., when I'm thinking, shouldn't we be going? He's saying, Chairman, we need to go to this. And I'm like, 10? But that is Tayo. He has the energy, he's committed. And on behalf of the NESG community, we'd like to wish him a successful tenure. The transition will end by the end of this year, and Tayo will formally resume as the CEO by January 1st, 2024, and then we start counting. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Congratulations to you, Dr. Tayo Aduloju. Thank you. You know, while they were talking about the outgoing CEO, Mr. Jayola, I was just hearing J-O-J, and it was sounding like joy to me. He brought joy to the house. He brought happiness to the house. He brought professionalism to the house. And as I was talking, my mind went to Mahatma Gandhi, who once told us that the only way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So without much ado, 2 days has run like 2 minutes, and we are gradually coming to a close. The Honorable Minister for Budget and Economic Planning is here, and I'm very happy that he's coming to do his closing remarks with a broad smile on his face. Please welcome His Excellency Abubakar Atiku Bagudu. I welcome him.
Thank you all. Well, when I learned that NESG does not have term limits, I wonder maybe we should have seen that earlier. So, but we are coming to the end of this event, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a befitting tribute to a gentleman who has worked very, very hard over the years truly to position the NESG, and the brand name cannot be spoken without an acknowledgement of his pioneering contribution. Congratulations and thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm called here to do the simple task of closing my remarks. Yesterday, we left here for the Federal Executive Council, and therein I had the opportunity of thanking Mr. President for coming. But he said, oh no, it's the other way around. He enjoyed himself so much. He left here with renewed vigor and energy. And he said, thank you to, he felt energized that the support he saw, both during the campaign and following his swearing in, and indeed the measures that were almost beyond contemplation. But he had yesterday messages of support, messages of unity. And I thank you all for encouraging our transformative leader. Secondly, today, as I was walking here, I had the coordinating minister of the social welfare and Minister of Health talking about how even in their protests, Nigerians are expressing the love for their country. And certainly, whoever has been following the NESG over the years know that the annual conferences are nothing but a demonstration of love for Nigeria, because the themes are always clear that they are about a belief in a Nigeria with a greater future. I remembered in 2015, the NESG costed the campaign promises of the incoming administration. Marvelous, brilliant work. And that helped set the tone. And I also remembered, I think a year or 2 years ago, we had the former Ethiopian Prime Minister, and he spoke for an hour and then joined a panel discussion, of which I'm one of those in the panel discussion. Again, for about 45 minutes, the panel discussion went on. And after the panel discussion, before it closes, the audience were allowed to make comments. And one person asked him, Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke to us for 1 hour and you participated in the panel discussion for 45 minutes. But in Ethiopia, the Tigray province, there's trouble. And he, I think, as I was called here to do it, he responded with a smile. He said, yes, whenever he has a moment to talk about his country, he will talk about what is good. So I had that throughout yesterday. Yes, we are challenged. Countries have been challenged. Yes, we have made wrong choices or poor choices. But yes, we all sometimes do, whether in business, whether as corporate. But the appreciation that we are living on acres of diamond, we have a strong absorptive capacity, and we can bequeath our children and our grandchildren a country that they can be proud of, because no matter how successful they are, whether in Nigeria or elsewhere, they need the pride of a nation to support them in achieving their dreams. So, NESG, we thank, I am personally grateful to all the chairman and board members, and my friend Jai, and the incoming, and indeed all those who worked very, very hard to put this together. Amina, Ijoma, Sonyadi, they even made us part with more money at the ministry. But it's well justified because a lot of my friends in the private sector put their money where their mouth is. So in doing so, also at the ministry, we put our money where we believe we will earn good value, and indeed we earn good value, and we are very, very proud. Equally, the team at the Federal Ministry of Budget and Planning, led by the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Niobelisa Anako, and the co-chair, Public Director Macro, and indeed all the other team members have done a wonderful job. But last but not the least is all those believers in Nigeria from different parts of the country and beyond who joined online, and supporters of Nigeria who gathered to encourage us. For me, personally, I'm very, very happy that literally I participated in the last 18 sessions of the Congress. And today, having studied the National Planning Act more carefully, I know that this National Economic Summit Group is not only an innovation, but is actually supportive of the mandate of the ministry and supportive of our cooperative federalism, because we are a country blessed with different constituent parts, blessed with different constitutional power separation, and all needs to work together. And occasionally we need private sector players interrogating what government do, interrogating plans that are in existence, and promises that we make, and guiding, supporting, and encouraging all. So I thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity. I thank all my friends. Boye has been here. He has been to my office, among many others that are here. We at the ministry feel supported, and the directive of Mr. President is that we must take the resolutions seriously. And I urge the board to ensure that the resolutions are presented in such a way that they will feature either as budget line items or in a way that we can be told that this resolution have not been implemented and we have not been told the reason why, so that this valuable gathering can be put to effect for our country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And I want to flow along with you as we are all swimming in the pool of thanks by thanking all the sponsors. MTN, we say thank you to you. Stanbic IBTC, we are very grateful. Sterling Bank, FMN, Dangote, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, and UNICEF, we say thank you. The Nigeria Content Development and Monitoring Board, the Executive Secretary is here, we say thank you to you. Afex, Shell, Ran Oil, we say thank you. Nigeria LNG, Google, Bank of Industry, I Invest, First Bank, Nestle, Banwo Igodalo, Lotus Bank, United Capital, Paralex, Lagos Business School, Providence Bank, Cardinal Stone, Maritime Innovations Hub, Veraki, Universal Payment Services, Coca-Cola. We have Nigerian Bundling Company, the Signal Alliance Technology Holding, Dana Air, and KN. All of these people have made the last 2 days amazing. So let me invite here the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Budgets and Economic Planning, Engineer Nebulisa Anako, to do the final vote of thanks.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, Permanent Secretaries, Directors Generals here, Captains of Industry, distinguished participants, I plead to stand on existing well-established protocol. On behalf of the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning and the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, I want to thank us all for these 2 grueling days, each starting in the morning, 7 a.m., well into the night, and we are staying here. Please let us give ourselves a round of applause. Our special appreciation goes to His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for personally participating in this year's summit. This is an indication of the current administration's commitment to the Nigerian Economic Summit and changing the narrative on effective collaboration between the public and private sectors. We cannot thank Mr. President enough. This year's Nigerian Economic Summit, NESG 29, is special in many ways. It's taking place in a year of change of administration, from one administration to the other. It's taking place when the new administration has initiated very bold economic measures. It's taking place when government needs key inputs from the private sector. So in other words, like the theme of this summit, collaboration in sustainable economic transformation, and also inclusion, which is one of the 8 points priority agenda of this administration. Also, special in this summit, in one of the sessions yesterday, the medium-term economic framework, we had a public discussion on it with stakeholders so that the private sector will also have a buy-in and contribution into it towards fashioning the budget for the year so that everything is out there in the open, in a transparent manner, how the administration is moving. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to extend our sincere appreciation to the leadership and members of the National Assembly, the judiciary, and state governors for participating actively during this 2-year event. The chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, His Excellency the Governor of Kwara State, the Governor of Nasarawa State, and today, His Excellency the Governor of Edo State, all contributed immensely to this summit, and we thank them. And it is a clear demonstration of the determination of all arms and tiers of government to work with the private sector to realize the development aspirations of the country. We are very grateful also to the Secretary, to the government of the Federation, who was here personally yesterday during the opening ceremony. His Excellency Senator George Akume. We thank him very much. Also, our thanks go to the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, the permanent secretaries, and other senior government officials of both the federal state levels for their active participation in this summit. Worthy of mention is our private sector partners who have worked round the clock to ensure the success of the summit. We appreciate you all. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to use this opportunity to express our heartfelt appreciation to the Honorable Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, His Excellency Senator Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, CON. As the co-host of this summit, he has provided direction and superintended over the planning of this summit. Let me also thank the chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, the private sector co-chair, Mr. Olaniyi, Yusuf, for his efforts. Well, this is his first outing as chairman of NESG board, and he has demonstrated that his choice as chairman was not misplaced. The CEO, NESG, Mr. Lalo Jayola, also deserves our thanks for the leadership and commitment in coordinating the summit process in the last 9 years. Both the chairman and CEO provided inspiration. And I dare say, well, he has a tenure extension has been forced upon him till January for his good works. They say the result of good work is more work. And of course, we appreciate the Vice Chairman, Mr. Osagie Okumbo, Mr. Omoyede Olusanya, the Vice Chairman too, and the hard-working Vice Chairman 3, Amina Meina. To the incoming chairman, CEO, Mr. Tayo Adiloju, we're expecting you on board very soon. And let me ask, is Mr. Asuo Igodalo in the hall? I have a reason for calling him out. The immediate past chairman, now the former chairman. You know, towards the end of the last administration, I have a friend, a former minister, few weeks to the end of the administration. He used to tell a joke. Say, now some people are already calling me outgoing minister. And that I know a few days after handover, people will start calling me former minister. And maybe 1 month or two, they will say SY minister. But in the NES, Nigerian Economic Summit, we don't forget. We always remember the very hardworking people, including the very hardworking directors in the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, who are the co-partners. And I will not end these thanks without mentioning at least the leaders of the Joint Planning Committee, and also the Central Organization Committee. It's a very tedious job. They did it. The Central Joint Planning Committee is led by Felix Okonkwo of the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning as the co-chair, public sector co-chair, and Mrs. Ijoma Taylor as the public sector co-chair. Well, thank you for your good work. Anybody that have this brochure, but for you to digest the program alone, the brochure, it will take you 1 hour. That tells you the amount of work they put into planning this summit and the success of the summit. So we thank you all. I would also like to appreciate in a special way institutions, corporate organizations, and individuals for their contributions towards the hosting of this summit. We appreciate and cherish your generous contributions. This summit went a long way, and like Mr. President said yesterday, he expects bankable advice from this summit, which will help the administration. And if you go through the program, in fact, these 2 days we've talked through, apart from the immediate necessity of dissecting the economic imperatives that we need, the summit is also, this very next 29, is also far forward-looking in that it's discussed issues of human capital development and nutrition for children, if you like, issues of akpunede, let me say stomach infrastructure and brain infrastructure, because human capital is one of our major resources in this country. And so this, we can thank the organizers and also the participants enough. So I thank the co-chairs, public and private sector, all members of the Joint Planning Committee and other officials that have worked tirelessly to make this summit a big success. I wish to express my sincere thanks to our friends in the media for always being very supportive, and we salute your objective reporting and cooperation. Yesterday, the first day of the summit, before I left the hall, I was already receiving calls of the coverage in different media. And we thank you, gentlemen of the media. Finally, I will not fail to thank all our most valued participants for attending this summit. If I didn't mention everybody in this hall, this is the cream like the cream. Everybody here is a VIP. If we are to recognize and thank everybody here, we need another day for this summit. So you are all well appreciated. And I trust we are going back more enriched and determined in our resolve to move this country forward. I thank you all and wish you journey mercies back.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary. Very quickly, I needed to add Flour Mills, Nigeria, Total Energies, and Kia Motors as one of those companies that have been part of it. Let's appreciate them. Thank you very much. But very quickly, this set of people are solid professionals. They have their jobs. But like they say in the parlance of NESG, they pay to serve. Can I have members of the Central Organizing Committee stand up, please? All of you. Let's appreciate them. How about the Joint Planning Committee? Joint Planning Committee, please. They will not work next year if you don't clap for them very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for serving. When I see people serve like this, I just remember what my grandmother used to tell me, that great people are those who plant trees under whose shade they're not ready to stay. I'll probably just close with a short story. In 1924, a young man was going to the Olympics. A week before the Olympics, they called him that his wife was about to give birth. So he was thinking, do I go home and wait for my child, or I go to the Olympics? He went home. He forgot about the Olympics. 24 years later, 1954, that same son went to the Olympics and he won gold. And then he wrote the father a letter. He said, Dad, the gold you forfeited for my sake, I'm bringing home. What you are doing, what you have done for 2 days, and what you are planning is not for you. You are all made people. You are planning for the future generation. Put your hands together for yourselves. So very quickly, I just want to inform you that upstairs, Kano room, all the journalists and cameramen are to meet there for the press briefing. Okay, the secretariat team, please. Where are they? Secretariat team. Okay. Where are they? Secretariat team, thank you. Thank you. And we also want to appreciate Beth King as one of our sponsors. So, journalists, Kano room upstairs for the press briefing. But I've enjoyed doing this event in the last 2 days, especially surrounded by the man that is more handsome than I am, Oladele Ogulano, and the very delectable, energetic Temi Badru. Thank you. So in closing, shall we all rise now for the national anthem? God bless you. Safe journey home. And Mr. Jayola, one more time, thank you for serving. Thank you.